Your grandfather made a mistake in 1920 that's costing your farm money right now, today. He didn't know it was a mistake. Nobody did. The dealer shook his hand, showed him the new tractor, told him this was progress. And your grandfather believed him. Why wouldn't he? But in that handshake, in that moment, farmers gave up something they didn't even know they were losing. Something that took 100 years to build and 20 years to destroy. 3 mistakes, 3 decisions that felt right at the time, 3 choices that seemed like progress, but turned out to be the beginning of everything that's wrong with American farming today. This is what the dealers never told your grandfather. What the manufacturers didn't want him to know. What farming magazines celebrated as innovation, but was actually the biggest transfer of power away from farmers in the history of American agriculture. If you watched the last video, you saw what powered American farms before tractors ever existed. Steam engines, 30-ton machines that your grandfather's generation ran from dawn to dark. But here's what we didn't talk about. What happened right after those machines changed everything. The decision that followed. The move that seemed smart at the time, but turned out to be the biggest mistake American farmers ever made. Nobody talks about this. Not the dealers, not the manufacturers, not the farming magazines that covered every new tractor like it was the answer to everything. But you felt the result. Maybe your dad felt it. Maybe your grandfather warned you about it before he passed. This is the story of 3 mistakes farmers made when they switched to new equipment. 3 decisions that seemed right in the moment, and why those mistakes are still costing American farms today. 20 years. That's how long it took to change everything. In 1910, most American farms ran on horses or steam power. By 1930, almost every farm in the country had a gasoline tractor. 20 years, 1 generation. The fastest technology shift in the history of American agriculture. Your grandfather lived through this, watched his father's steam engine sit silent in the barn while a new tractor took its place in the field. Watched neighbors sell off horses overnight. One who watched an entire way of farming disappear in the time it took to raise a family. And everyone celebrated. New technology, new efficiency, new future. Progress. But here's what nobody asked at the time. What nobody thought to ask: what did farmers give up to get it? Because they did give something up. Something they didn't notice losing until it was already gone. Something that's costing American farms right now. Today. 3 mistakes. 3 choices that seemed right. 3 decisions that changed everything, and not always the way farmers expected. Fellow farmers who remember the old days, you already know where this is going. Did your grandfather ever talk about when tractors first arrived on your family's farm? What did he say about the switch? Drop your story in the comments. Other farmers want to hear it. The first mistake started with a simple conversation. A dealer walked onto your grandfather's farm, shook his hand, showed him the new tractor, stood it right next to the steam engine that had worked that land for years. This is the future, the dealer said. Everyone's switching, and your grandfather believed him. Why wouldn't he? The dealer had the answers, the numbers, the new equipment sitting right there looking like the future. But here's what your grandfather didn't understand in that moment. That dealer wasn't there to help him farm better. He was there to sell. For generations before that conversation, farmers trusted themselves, trusted their own experience, trusted what worked season after season on their own land. A steam engine that pulled 12 bottom plows for 20 straight years, that was proof. No salesman needed to explain why it worked. The farmer was the expert, on his land, on his operation, on the equipment that kept it running. But the moment dealers became the gatekeepers of farm technology, that trust shifted. Suddenly, the farmer wasn't the expert on his own operation anymore. The dealer was. You need the new model, the dealer said. The old one won't cut it anymore. And farmers listened. Because the alternative, figuring it out alone when the world was changing this fast, felt impossible. Fellow farmers, you've felt this. Maybe not with the first tractors, but you've walked into a dealership and walked out feeling like a stranger on your own land. Like the person who farmed that ground for decades suddenly became the student. That started here, with the first switch. When farmers handed trust to the people who were selling, and stopped trusting the people who were actually working the ground. When's the last time you fixed something on your farm yourself? without calling a dealer. How long has it been? Fellow farmers, be honest. Tell us in the comments. The second mistake was quieter. Nobody noticed it happening. Not while it was happening. Your grandfather could fix a steam engine with basic tools. A wrench, sometime. Knowledge passed down from his own father before him. When something broke, he didn't call anyone. He opened the engine, found what was wrong, and fixed it himself. Before lunch sometimes. That was normal. That was how farming worked. The farmer was the mechanic, the operator, the decision maker, everything in one person. When the new tractors arrived, they promised simpler maintenance, fewer moving parts than steam, no boiler to tend every morning, no coal to haul, just fuel and oil. And that part was true in the beginning. But something else happened at the same time, something nobody planned, but everybody accepted without realizing what it meant. Farmers stopped learning how things worked, not because they were lazy, not because they didn't care about their operation, because they didn't need to anymore. The dealer had parts, the dealer had mechanics, the dealer had answers. Why spend a week understanding a problem when someone else could fix it in an afternoon? One generation, that's all it took. Your grandfather could rebuild an engine from memory, could look at a machine and know exactly what was wrong before he even opened it up. Your dad could probably diagnose most problems himself. Slower maybe, but he could do it. But by the time your generation came along, and this isn't a criticism, it's just the truth, the knowledge gap was already there, already wide. Steam engines demanded understanding. You couldn't run one without knowing exactly how it worked. The machine wouldn't let you walk away from that knowledge. It required you. New equipment lets you walk away from it, and once a skill stops being passed from father to son, it doesn't come back in a generation. It doesn't come back in two, maybe not ever. That's the real mistake. Not choosing new equipment, choosing to stop understanding the equipment you chose. Your grandfather didn't make that choice willingly. It was made for him, by speed, by convenience, by a world that said, don't worry about how it works, just worry about how fast it goes. What equipment knowledge did your dad pass down to you? What can you still fix yourself on your own operation? This knowledge matters more than people think. Share it below. Fellow farmers want to hear what you know. The third mistake is the hardest one to sit with, because it wasn't really a mistake at all. It was just too fast. Nobody chose to rush this. The technology arrived fast. The dealers pushed fast. The neighbors switched fast. The whole country moved forward at a speed nobody had ever seen in the history of farming. 20 years, steam to gasoline, horses to horsepower, an entire industry rewritten in the time it takes to raise a family. And in those 20 years, farmers didn't have time to ask the one question that actually mattered. Is this actually better, or is it just different? Because when everyone around you is moving, stopping to think feels like falling behind. Your neighbor bought a tractor. His neighbor bought one too. The county extension agent is showing the new equipment at every meeting. The parts store is stocking for the new machines and nothing else. Staying with what worked suddenly felt like stubbornness, like refusing to move forward, like being the old man who wouldn't change. But what if moving forward meant skipping the question that changes everything? Does this actually serve the way I farm? Or does it serve the way someone else decided I should farm? Steam engines were built for farmers. Long life, simple repair, designed around the way farms actually worked, built to outlast the man who bought them. The new equipment was built for something else entirely. Speed, efficiency numbers, production growth, for the next season, not the next generation. Those aren't the same thing. The farmers who switched fastest gained ground early, made money those first few years, looked smart to everyone watching. But the farmers who asked questions first, who moved slower, who insisted on understanding before they committed, they're the ones whose operations actually lasted. Decades later, their farms still stood. The fast movers, many didn't make it past the next downturn. The mistake wasn't switching. It was switching without asking why, without measuring what was lost alongside what was gained, without keeping one foot in what worked while testing what was new. Fellow farmers, the operations that survived the longest weren't run by the people with the newest equipment. They were run by farmers who knew when not to upgrade. 3 mistakes, 3 decisions that felt right at the time. Trusting the dealer over your own experience. Or letting go of the knowledge your grandfather built. Moving faster than the truth could follow. Your grandfather's generation didn't make these mistakes on purpose. They had no choice. The world was changing faster than anyone had ever seen. And in that chaos, they made the best decisions they could with what they knew. But here's what they couldn't know then. What you understand now, the equipment was never the problem. The speed was, the trust was, the forgetting was. And those 3 mistakes didn't end with the first tractors. They are happening right now, today. Every time a farmer upgrades without asking why. Every time a dealer becomes the expert instead of the farmer. Every time convenience replaces understanding. Fellow farmers, you've watched this happen your whole lives. You have felt it on your own operation. Maybe your dad warned you. Maybe your grandfather shook his head at what farming was becoming. Now you know exactly why. What did your dad tell you about switching to new equipment? What did your family lose when farming changed? Share your stories below. Other farmers need to hear what you remember, what you lived through, what you were taught. If this one hit close to home, the next video goes further. Why new technology didn't save small farms, even when it promised it would. That one's coming soon. Fellow farmers, stay close.